When it comes to embroidery, the most common task that stitchers engage in, aside from actually stitching itself, is preparing their needle and thread. Let's cover the basics so you can get to stitching. Stranded embroidery floss is comprised of 6 strands that can either be used as a whole or separated. A skein of embroidery floss generally comes in a looped fashion, banded at the top and the bottom. Look for the start of the thread at the bottom band. Always pull your thread from this location so the skein remains untangled. A good length to work with is about an arm's length. If you need to separate the strands, lightly divide the strands with your fingernail, and once separated, pull one strand out. You can repeat this step until you have the desired amount of strands. You are now ready to thread your needle. To thread the needle, trim any frayed edges. Flatten the strands between your fingers, leaving no more than just the tip poking out, and push the strands through the eye of the needle. Now, if not all strands go through the first time, that's okay. Start over and try again. Before stitching, it's good practice to determine your stitch length. A stitch length is the approximate size of one stitch, and as you look at the design, ask yourself, how can these lines be evenly divided? 3 stitches, 4 stitches? You want to keep a mental note as you stitch so you can have even stitches. The knotless method. As you bring your needle up through the fabric, leave a 3-inch tail on the back side of your hoop. As you stitch, you'll want to ensure that this tail remains and be mindful not to get it tangled. To finish your stitching with the knotless method, weave the ends of the thread into the previous stitching. And once the thread is secure, you can trim those ends off. Now we still have this tail from the start of our stitch. Rethread the bottom tail into the needle and weave it into your stitches. Once the thread is secure, you can trim the ends off. Alternatively, you can place an away knot, so you don't have to worry about losing the tail at the beginning of your first stitch. To place an away knot, knot the end of your thread. And from the top of the fabric, bring your needle down 3 inches away from where you want to start your first stitch. Once you've completed stitching, weave in the ends to finish your stitch. Snip the away knot and release the beginning tail. Rethread the needle and weave it into the beginning stitches. The knot method. For the knot method, you must first tie a knot at the end of your thread. And so a quick trick to knotting your thread is to hold the needle flat, lay the end of your thread perpendicular to your needle, and pinch the end of the thread to your needle. Wrap 2 or 3 times around the needle and then pinch those wrapped threads as well. Pull the needle and thread through until you've reached the end. And you have it. Your thread is magically knotted. Now that you have a knot at the end of your thread, you can begin your first stitch. To end your stitch, slide your needle under the previous stitch until a small loop is left. Take your needle through the loop and pull until the thread forms a knot. Then you can trim off the excess thread and you are good to go.